The brain patterning cycle. I remember returning from my first week-long nature awareness class in New Jersey with Tom Brown Jr., where I learned about the everyday dandelion plant. I tasted its bitter, yummy taste. I learned that dandelion leaves offer one of the most abundant plant sources of vitamin A known to humans. All through the week, I would pick a few leaves a day to eat as a general health tonic. I returned home to my house in Georgia, where I lived for 18 years, and I walked through my yard. I suddenly froze in astonishment. Dandelions suddenly grew all over my yard. I never noticed it, but now that I had a brain pattern, in this case a search image for dandelion, and I found it everywhere. We see this over and over as people come to learn with us and return home convinced that red-tailed hawks or American robins have suddenly moved into their area. In truth, the robins, red-tails, and dandelions lived there all along, but because our brains were not yet patterned on them, our perceptions did not include their natural elements. These observations cause us to formulate the following brain patterning cycle. Sensory input, mental focus, then brain patterns, then perceptions, then beliefs, then behaviors, actions, then sensory input and mental focus. Everything we take in with our senses combined with what we focus our mental attention on results in brain patterns. Brain patterns in turn determine our perceptions, how we see the world. Our beliefs about the world are formed this way. See the transformation of my beliefs. Before that Tom Brown class, I believed food and medicine came from grocery stores and pharmacies, and I believed my yard was only good for soccer games. New brain pattern opened my eyes to new perceptions, which changed my beliefs. I began to believe that food could come for free out of my own backyard. Our beliefs, in turn, determine our actions and behaviors. Previously, if I wanted to make a salad, I'd drive to the store. Now, I could take a walk in the backyard. The next consequence is fairly obvious. Our actions and behaviors determine our sensory input. Grocery store fluorescent lights versus dappled sunshine and birdsong in the backyard. And our mental focus, iceberg lettuce versus dandelions. Now we are back at the beginning of the cycle. Now we understand how our behaviors fortify our habits over time and make them stronger through repetition. What we miss, the flip side of brain patterning. When we apply this brain patterning theory to connecting with nature, we discover its flip side. Brain patterns causing us to notice specific things, implying that we will not notice almost everything else. It's like a magic trick. As observers, our brains recognize movements we expect to see. These mental habits cause us to miss the subtle sleights of hand that engage the magic, really just clever maneuvering around our conditioning. However, once we recognize how the trick works, we know what to look for and the veil is lifted. So as members of the modern world, what are we missing? As the old saying goes, we are what we eat. In terms of sensory input and mental focus, it seems to be true. Our beliefs and behaviors are a reflection of our brain patterning. If we spend most of our time in our houses and buildings, in our living rooms and bedrooms, we almost literally are living rooms and bedrooms. If our culture's gaze has turned inside, we won't notice the natural world. For many people in urbanized areas nowadays, wild nature doesn't really exist in their perceptions of the world. We find this to be an enlightening and yet also scary realization. No surprise that that very few people notice when the landscape starts to change in response to our human actions, when rabbits lose their habitats and disappear when frogs stop singing. Yes, a few, the scientists trained to see such things, will notice. To almost everyone else, those subtle happenings in nature are lost. As a culture, unless we can shift our focus of attention, we'll continue basing our choices on a sense of reality that doesn't include the rest of nature. We miss much more than just the crises in nature. Children grow up not noticing the beauty of a robin song in the morning or the fragile first flowers of spring. Grown-ups walk through streets blind to the hawks soaring majestically overhead or the fox tracks lacing the back alleys with stories. The hills and clouds stop speaking to our imagination and the paths to the streams and forests get overgrown.